Who's your emergency contact? Who we should notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2 decades of my life. I'm taking you now just on a journey with me. And in this particular time, we're in Victorville, USP. I opened up Victorville in 2004, and I was there until I left around March, April of 2006, but only after I'd been in the SHU for about 4 or 5 months. In late December, I got in an incident that caused me to get a disciplinary transfer, and I ended up going to Beaumont. But right now, we're still in Victorville. You know, when we first came into Victorville, the middle yard has a gun tower. And under the gun tower, there's a space designated area where they got sandbags. And in the little area all around the gun tower with the sandbag, they had signs that said, "Out of bounds. Warning shots will be fired here." Well, after 2 weeks, the COs came. The COs are correctional officers. The guards came and pulled that sign out and replaced it with a new sign. And the new sign said, "There will be no warning shots." So that just gives you a little idea of the environment that we're living in. Like I told you shared with you earlier in the earlier episodes about everybody fighting for territories. And that's what it is. You can't have tables, you can't have TVs, you can't have tables in the kitchen, you can't hang out in a spot on the yard if you're not making it known that this is your property. Sales. When you go into sales, when you come into your unit, you know, we're on a California yard, so most of the sales are occupied by the Crips and the Bloods, the Serenos, the Paisas, and the white boys. So if you're out of town, if you're from the East Coast or what, when you come in, you're really trying to buy or sell from these people that live there in this region. You know, vice versa. West Coast dudes that go out to the East Coast or to the Midwest got to go through the same thing. I just so happen to do most of my time in California. I've been in Lompoc, Victorville, Atwater, but I did a couple years in Bloody Beaumont. And when I went over to Bloody Beaumont, it was such a drastic difference from where I was in Victorville, because in Victorville, we have homies over there. And I was one of the first ones in Victorville, so we were able to establish what sales belong to us, which TV, which table throughout the different units belong to us. Because there was always at least 30 to 40 of Asian and Islanders. In Beaumont, when I was there were like 7 of us, give and take between 5 and 10 for the whole 2 years I was there. So, and the people that owned those property over there were the Texas Syndicate, the Texas MA, and as far as the black, it was the DCs. The DCs ran that yard for the blacks. But you know, you had dudes from Texas, you got people from all over the country and even part of the world that are in federal prison. So in Victorville, it's a constant drama. But it's like every other penitentiary I've been in. You know, the 2 years I spent in Victorville, I did literally practically half that time in the SHU. I went to the SHU for organizing a lockdown, a laydown, where we refused to come out of our cells in the morning. So they all locked us down. They had us locked down for 3 months. And like I said, it took me a little longer to come back to the yard. And when I came out to the yard, I was there for couple months, maybe the summer, and got picked up for some wine, went back in. Then eventually I came out to a step down program and made it back out. Well, this particular episode, I just want to just run through a few different incidents that happened while I was there. Mainly we're gonna focus on the Native American. One of my good friends is Pete. He's a native Crip out of Arizona. He was there. I guess they're all named Pete. Petey Loke, and another Pete. They were cousins or homies from their hood. But in the penitentiary, there's been a beef going on with the Native Crips and the WS. WS is Word Society. For whatever reason or another, they don't function together. So they end up getting into it in Victorville. P. Loke and his crew, they had a little alliance with the Crips, the black Crips, the California Crips or whatnot. But when it comes to incident within our own race, everybody stays out of it unless you're just drastically outnumbered. Me and Pete, we've been in a few different prisons together. We've been in 3 actually, Lompoc, Victorville, and Beaumont. And every one of those prisons that he's been into, he ends up getting into with the WS, with the Word Society. They had a Word Society there named Tim. He's cool when he's sober. But when he's drunk, it's another different story. One of the early incidents when we got there was with a Tonga dude named Noki. They lived on the west side, I lived on the east side. They lived in the first building, so that was either 6 or 4. 5 is in the middle, But, this is before I found out, got to check Noki's paperwork and all this stuff. He turned out to be foul. But when he first came in, he was on the west side. And I told him, hey, whatever you do, don't drink with the natives. Because when they drink, there's something about them. They go to another world, especially with Tim. So him and Noki, when I was in the shoe, they end up in the shoe. And when I went out to the rec cage and seen Noki, he had a razor cut across his face right here, where I guess him and Tim was drinking, and they got into it. Fortunately, Noki knew how to fight and was able to fight Tim off, but Tim tried to cut him with a razor and cut him across the face up here. Now, for those of you that's viewing this that are from Utah and know this individual, Noki, you know that he's had a hard time in the penitentiary. He got stabbed up in Big Sandy. I got a letter when I was in Atwater telling him he got stabbed. He went over there, he got on Sereno time. And somehow he burnt one of the big homies from the Sereno, and he got punished over there in Big Sandy. Just a few years ago when I was leaving, 2016, when I just left to Lewisburg, he had hit the line. And he shot us a kite. The homie shot me a kite about the incident when I was in Lewisburg. But he was trying to tell, when he came on the line, he sent a kite to Easy from Glendale, Tom Crip from Glendale, tell him, hey, I'm the homie, man, whoop-de-whoop. But people already know who you are, where you are if you've been in the feds. There's no, even though they got 20-something penitentiaries now, you're always gonna run, it's a small world. You're always gonna run into somebody that knows something about you, that knows what happened to you, that was on another yard with you, and you can fake the funk for a few months or whatnot, but eventually at the end of the day, the truth's gonna come out. And if you're foul, and if you're fucked up, you did something scandalous on another yard, you're gonna get punished. You know. But what happened to him in Atwater, I'll just leave that for another episode. But right here, I just want to talk about just all the little chaos that goes through when you're drinking, knowing who to drink with, who to hang out with, because all that's important. Because all that stuff can cost you your life. And I told Inoki when he came, I said, don't drink with the natives. And he ended up drinking it with them anyway. You know, he's lucky, like I said, he was able to fight. But if that razor was a little lower, I could have hit him in his jugular and he could have died. You know, but at the same time, we're all men. So when the SIS, which is a secret investigation service, they're like the internal affairs, the police of the penitentiary. They investigate inmates and staff members. You know, they're the only one that can escort you off the premises and put an indictment and refer your case to the real courts or whatnot. But, you know, we talked to them to let them both back out because they both agreed that, you know, everything was cool. And this happens all the time. You can get into it with somebody, you guys can stab each other up, almost kill each other. But if you come to a certain agreement where you're respected, that you respect each other and that you're gonna squash the beef, they'll let you both back out in the yard. You know, but if you do it a second time, then they're gonna separate you, ship one off, keep one, or ship both off. You know. So on this particular incident, my buddy Kale Vainuku, he just came from Polak. And him and I became cellies in Victorville. And we were out in the yard one day drinking. We were just kicking back, just drinking. And you know, we're on yard 3. Yard 3 has the track. So we're drunk, so we're kicking back, drinking at a table. Then here comes about 5 natives. They come over there, they got their bottle of wine, or hooch, whatever you want to call it, homemade brew. So they come over there and sit in the next table with us. And they start drinking, you know, laughing, kicking it. We're just kicking it. It's hot. It's like maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So when they sat down and started drinking, I told Ikale, I said, hey man, let's go. Let's take a walk. So we got up and walked the track. He's like, man, what's up, man? Because it's hot. And where we were at, they had a little shade. You know, they put this, it's really fucking retarded because the pole is about 20 feet high before you get the shade, you know, so you have to catch the sun at a certain time for it to cast over the table. Other than that, it's just standing up there. And if anybody been in Victorville, it's about 45 minutes from LA, 3 hours from Vegas. It's the desert. After 10 o'clock in the morning, after 9 o'clock in the morning, it's scorching hot. You know, for the most part, when I was in Victorville, I just stayed in my unit running my poker table. So we walked the track and he's like, man, what's up, man? We could have just stayed over there and kicked at the table. I was like, listen, man, I've been around these natives. Every time they drink, somebody gets butchered. So we walked around the track, went and did other things and whatnot, and at 3:30 is recall, where we come back to the unit. So we come back to the unit, like I said, me and Kale were cellies, and he was like, man, we could have kicked it at the table. Ain't nothing happened. They was just kicking it. I was like, well, if nothing happened, that's a first, because I promise you, every time they get drunk, somebody gets butchered. And I'm not, you know. So 4:30 count clears, 5 o'clock, between 4:30 and 5 o'clock, they start chow. So they opened my unit up, maybe close to 5. You know, this is late in December already. This is 2005. Maybe not December, but Ikale got there maybe around November or October 2005. So we come out of chow and the sun's already down, it's dark. And we live in 2A. So down the hall, down the sidewalk, you got 3B and 3A. Then you got a cage, a gate that goes through the indoor rec and the law library and the chapel. Well, we walk over there and there's two figures over there. We're not really sure what's going on, but when you look, there's a guy being butchered. Tim was stabbing another native in the corner. And he stabbed him till the body didn't move no more. He walked away. Me and Kali are sitting there watching this. He walks away to try to get back to his unit on the west side, but the gate was locked because they went over there during the activity move. At 4:30, you got an activity move where you can go to the yard, to the programs, to chapel, or whatnot. And then they lock all the doors, all the gates, and they call chow. So I guess he got around there during the activity move. Because when he tried to come back through the gate was still locked. So when he discovered that the gate was locked, he went back and stabbed the guy some more. The guy's not even moving anymore. He went over there and stabbed him some more until I guess he got tired. Left, stopped, walked back, around to the gate. The gate was still locked. So he came back a third time and proceeded to stab the guy some more. And then when he came back the third time, finally the gun towers that surrounds the building, surrounds the penitentiary, and they got one in the middle of the yard, finally somebody noticed it and hit the deuces. The deuces is the panic button, emergency button, notifying all the staff to report to this incident. You cannot be in a penitentiary and expect the staff to save you. Whatever you say, whatever you do, if it's disrespectful, if it's out of line, you have to be prepared and expect that the situation is going to go left. And when it does, you have to go with it with the intention of defending your life. We don't fight in a penitentiary to exchange punches. They fight to kill. And that's with every incident. Like I've told you before, when you start stabbing somebody, you don't stop till that body ain't moving no more. Not everybody abides by it, but, some people might get into an incident hoping that the CO might come and save them. Sometimes they do, but a lot of times they don't. Because really, these staff members, even though they act like they're tough or whatnot, at the end of the day, they rather we be stabbing each other than stabbing them. And if they get into a confrontation, they're not coming there to save you. The cell, when you're locked in your cell, you might think that's the safest place you can be. Just you and your cellie. But if you get into it with your cellie, especially after the 10 o'clock count, then people cannot open that door until you're both handcuffed or subdued. So the guy that's working the pod, if he comes by your cell and see that somebody's stabbing their cellie, all he's gonna do is stop it, scream, stop, 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 and maybe spray you. They're not opening that door until you both are subdued by the chemicals, by the bean bags, by the flash grenades, or if you voluntarily cuff up. But most people, when they're punishing their cellie, after lockdown in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning, they have every intention to killing that individual. They're not looking for the police to stop it. They're making sure that the police can't stop it. And I mentioned this before, man. Movies and whatnot, they create some gruesome sounds, some eerie sounds, some stuff that might scare you and terrify you and cause, a reaction in your body or whatnot. But until you hear a man screaming, begging for his life, you've never heard anything like that before. A sound of hopelessness, a sound of loss, screaming, stop, stop, you're gonna kill me, stop, stop. It's, because in that environment that we live in, we pride ourselves in being tough and being stone-faced and unaffected and all the other stuff, masculinity stuff that comes with whatever it is. So when you hear a man being broke down to where he's begging for his life, that sound never leaves you. This is the environment that we live in, man. I share you these stories to really enlighten you on what's there. You got homies that come home. They think it's a badge of honor to be in prison. Yeah, I did this much time. Look at me. I'm tied up and this and that. I'm not being disrespectful, taking away anything from them. They might have been G's. They might have went hard. They might have this and that. But I feel that it's misguiding the youth. Because being locked up, being in the penitentiary is nothing to glorify. Is nothing to be proud of. When you get sent to a penitentiary, what it says is that you failed in whatever it is that you were doing. But at the same time, I feel that you can have some pride about surviving the penitentiary, about being thrown in the lion's den and somehow, some way, able to find your way home. I feel that can be something that you can be proud of, especially if you conduct yourself accordingly, sticking with the code, honoring your obligations, carrying yourself like a man. Those things you can be proud of. But just being locked up, being in the penitentiary, no. These are part of the reasons why I'm continuing to do my episodes. One, of course, to entertain you with the stuff that's going on. But at the same time, to let you know the real. That this shit happens, man. Every single day out there. So, it's a sad life that we live. But welcome to the USP. Again, if you guys enjoy these episodes, please subscribe. Put your comments on YouTube. If you got any questions for me, hit me up. And like I said, if you were individuals that was there, any of these particular incidents that I've talked about, hit me up. Fill in the missing pieces or clarify things. And again, I'll repeat, I don't need to exaggerate, fabricate any of this stuff. The reality is already crazy enough. Welcome to the USP. Thanks for tuning in.